us at the Hot Topics table right now is former Texas governor and former Republican presidential candidate, the amazing and fabulous Rick Perry. Hey, baby.
Well done.
So,
Said it just like my mother wrote it.
Oh, yeah. Yes, you did. You know, we're close. Your mom and I. Anyway, Trump won big yesterday. He calls himself the presumptive nominee. Now, when you were in the race running against him, did you ever foresee this coming to this place? Or did you think it was going to go a little bit different?
That might have been a stretch.
Yeah.
I actually gave a speech and talked about the Donald.
Right.
And I was one of the first. It's really a fascinating thing when you think about it. When you look back 4 years ago, had the candidates, had Mitt Romney said some of the things that he said, we would have written him off, and it would probably been the end of his
and here he is. That's
nomination.
Right.
So this is a really fascinating time. But Candace, I think you're onto something here when you talk about the American people are just mad. I mean, we're mad.
We're always
and when we're mad, a lot of times, I don't know about you, but when I've been mad from time to time, I've done some things that might be considered to be a little irrational. And so, you know, maybe there's a little bit of something going on out there that people are just so mad that they want somebody who hadn't got anything to do with government. Because when I got in this thing back in, 2011, I was like, Americans are going to want somebody that's done this before. Your earlier segment, you talked about hopefully none of us have to have any heart surgery, but if we do, we want the best heart surgeon we can get. Somebody that's got a lot of experience
doing
and so we had
doing that specific
you had Jeb Bush, you had Bobby Jindal, you had Scott Walker, you had myself, you had some pretty experienced governors out there to make a decision about, and
you say the people are angry. What are they so angry about?
I think you think about what's happened to the middle class, and over the course of the last 6, 7 years, the middle class has seen their lack of ability to move up. I mean, they've seen their wealth being corrosively taken away from them. They don't think their kids are going to have as good a future as what they've had, and they think the whole thing is rigged against them.
Why is that?
And they're mad as hell, and they're not going to take it anymore.
Do you think the elites in the Republican Party don't understand that? And is there a way that they can bridge that of how Donald is attracting the blue-collar worker, the hard-working man, with the
white supremacists?
And the elite people in the...
Yeah. Every time I look at you, I think about all.
Well, but it's true.
He didn't endorse them, but he wouldn't.
No, but he hasn't negated them either.
Exactly.
And that's I mean, I understand what you're saying because, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your point.
I'm just asking, is there a way to bridge that?
But every time I look at you, Candace, I can't think but how many times you've been on my TV and Hallmark movies. Yes. My wife watches every Hallmark movie.
We all are. Candace, we all are starstruck.
To answer your question, I don't think Republican elites matter. I mean, and I think that may be
media.
I don't know who the Republican elite, the people that are going to be at the convention. That's the reason I don't think this thing's over with yet. I think you still got, I agree with you, there's not 1237 in the bag yet.
Right.
And when the football games ain't over, you keep playing.
Right.
But so my point is this, the way the rules work, and I know where you're going, I heard you in the other section.
Did you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. And I understand where you're coming from, but we can't just change the rules every time somebody doesn't like them.
But there's a real problem with the governor. There's a real problem. You've got millions of people that have voted for Donald Trump, and our Constitution is supposed to be about the will of the people. Now, why isn't the Republican Party going with...
More people voted for Al Gore.
Yes, and we saw how that worked out.
The rules are the rules. I mean, don't ask me to play by the rules and then change them because you don't like them. I mean, I talked about Tom Brady, and I know Tom Brady's probably beloved up here, and he's a great football player, but here's the rules. When you sign the deal to be in the NFL, Roger Goodell is the guy that gets to make the decision if you get into his court, so to speak, and he made that decision. Don't change it just because you don't like it. And Donald Trump has not liked the rules all along because he's kind of like, he's doing his math there and he's going 1237, I'm a little bit short. So, hey, get people like you to go out there and say, but I've got more votes than anybody, therefore I get it. And I refer people back. Al Gore had more votes, I think, in the popular vote. But that's the reason we have an electoral college.
Let's talk about you for a second, because the last time when you were running for election, We have a tape of what blew it for you. Can we look at it? Do you mind? Yeah. You've seen it 100 times. I want to just...
100?
I want to bring a point up for that. Watch this, what happened to poor Ray.
Tell you, it's 3 agencies of government when I get there that are gone. Commerce, education, and the, what's the third one there? Let's see.
You can't name the third one?
The third agency of government, yeah. I would do away with the education, the commerce, and let's see. I can't. The third one I can't. Sorry. Oops.
Okay. Okay, it was a horrible moment for you. I grasp that.
Trust me, and it is again.
But I know, but let me say something. You know, Donald Trump has famously said he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and people would still love him. What has he got that you don't have?
And I think you hit it, Candace, when you talked about he's been in these living rooms for years on a reality television program,
So
and
what?
people are comfortable. But people are comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And again, I think it gets back to in September when Americans really go, okay, we find ourselves in some very difficult waters out there, economically, militarily, where we find ourselves in the world, what's going on in the Middle East, and who is it that we want to be sitting in the Oval Office making the decisions about where this country is going to go? And at that particular point in time, you know, listen, I'm for Ted Cruz, and I still think that there is a way for Ted Cruz to be the nominee. There is a path.
I want to hear what
there is a path, and it's through a contested convention in Cleveland.
So now I got to ask you about this, because Ted Cruz has made also some very, if you're gay, really uncomfortable, nasty things. Said
everybody that's out there running has said some ugly, nasty things.
And I bitch at all of them. And so I'm asking you, when you embrace a candidate like Ted Cruz, what are you embracing about him? I just want to be clear, because I know that you don't subscribe to what
I think about what we've done in the state of Texas with the criminal justice system and the reforms that we've made there. And I'm going to be spending a lot of my time. I'm passionate about reforming the criminal justice system because people that look like you have not been treated right in that criminal justice system, and they need a strong law and order governor like me to stand up and say that, folks, we've got to change that. If we ever, the Republican Party that was made for freeing the slaves has forgotten about the African American.
Remember that.
No, but that's true.
Lincoln was the only one who was saying, "Listen, we got to get this together." He forced this issue.
But this
it wasn't like everybody said it.
But and we decided that we didn't need African American to vote, and we need to be back out there getting them back.
Do you feel that your party represents gay folks as well as they should?
LGBT community as well as they should. Do you feel like they even recognize them as human beings?
You have to understand, these folks also are Americans, and some of the things that Ted has espoused have not been good. I don't think they've been very good, so I want to make sure that you're not endorsing that.
Here's what I'm endorsing.
Okay.
Is that we are Americans, and we got to get past all of the labels, and we got to put policies into place that allow people to live free.
Okay.
And I'm a big believer that there's too many people want to consolidate power into Washington, D.C. I do happen to think, I'm a big believer in the 10th Amendment that basically says you push that back into the states and let them decide these issues. I happen to believe that that's where those issues need to be decided, not in the federal government. Whatever you may believe on the issue dealing with traditional marriage, I think it needs to be made back at the state level, not at the federal level.
Nothing at the federal level?
No,
nothing?
No,
even if they're promoting,
nothing. What do you mean by nothing?
Well, I mean,
nothing.
I alluded before in the first segment about how the Republican Party vetoed all of the jobs bills that were coming from Obama.
I don't think education needs to be coming out of Washington, D.C. You realize, had we bought into...
Jobs. The infrastructure.
That is jobs. If you're not getting the education side of it fixed, forget about getting a job. And those that want to consolidate all of that education policy in Washington, D.C., those that want to consolidate all of that education policy in Texas.
We will be right back with more with Brett Parry. It's okay. It's okay.
calling that's going on with Putin. I'm worried about the name calling that's going on in the Middle East. I'm worried about the name calling that's going on at homes at night because somebody can't have a job because the economy is so rotten.
Right.
And all of those things are what we need to be focused on as a country rather than, listen, I get it. This is reality TV. We're in a totally different time in our country's history when it comes to this whole electoral process. But at the end of the day, we've got some really serious issues
and
that face us as a
many of your
country.
people say you will back him and vote for him.
I will. I
See?
will.
You will.
At the end of the day,
You will.
that I
was
will.
my question. If it comes down to Hillary and Donald.
I will. Listen, Hillary, Senator Clinton has a different philosophical view than what I do about what government's role is. She believes that government and Washington, D.C. needs to be even strengthened more and more power put into Washington, D.C. I disagree with that, and I disagree with it powerfully, Raven, because I think if we're really going to be the country that our founding fathers saw for us to be, the freedoms that are out there, I want people to be free.
I have a question then.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm talking about the future, right? And I feel like within the government, there are a lot of people that don't reflect me and my age bracket or what I believe in. So, and another thing I talk to my mom about a lot is term limits on people having positions in government.
Yeah.
They should, how do you feel about it? I think they should be shortened and let new blood come in so that we can actually have a say in our government.
And this is where I think maybe experience kind of is going to speak for how I've evolved. Isn't that the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah, from Democrat to Republican.
Yeah, that too. When I'm 76 years old, I will have spent half of my life as a Republican and half of my life as a Democrat.
That's a long time in one job.
When I switched parties in 1988, I was a Democrat prior to all that. But here, let me share with you my observation early on was I was a big believer in term limits. By golly, that's a way to keep all of the dead wood out. You just, this amount of time and then kick them out.
Right.
Here's what happens. Here's reality. When you term limit the people who come into public service, say there's somebody like you that's really good and doing a great job and fair and honest and capable, and you term limit them, why would you want to get rid of them at that particular point in time? It'd be like, Whoopi kicking you out of here after 6 years.
I want to get rid of them because there's new blood and there's always new ideas going on, and you know that the younger generation has a say in this country just as much as the older generation. And when you have younger blood in there, you can help change the minds and ideas of what happened before.
But here's what you do when you have term limits. You turn over the longevity to the bureaucrats, because bureaucrats are not term limited. And when you have the term limits for the elected officials, yet you leave the bureaucrats there from now on, they go, oh, yes, ma'am, we'll get right on that. And then they go on about doing what they want to get done, and they don't listen to you. And I see that in Washington, D.C.
Let me ask you this, because you mentioned the middle class, and it was something I remember we had during Clinton. And then it seemed that when former President Bush came in, we lost a lot of stuff. We lost a lot of jobs. We lost a lot of stuff. People's 401ks disappeared. All kinds of stuff happened because we got into these wars and all of this kind of stuff. We are now in an economy that is better than it was 8 years ago.
Unemployment is at an all-time low.
And why is it that with everybody being so angry, no one has any solutions? I don't understand. We're in a fairly good spot now. We're doing better. And this guy, who's been our president for 8 years, has gotten his chops busted quite a bit. So how do we maintain where we are, the upswing draft that we're in? Because we're not in a downdraft and we have to go, so you have to tell me really fast or tell me later.
So I'm really intrigued that the media keeps telling us that things are really bad, that we're in as bad a condition as we've ever been in. I think you may be close to touching on something. It's not as bad, and I think with the right leadership and bringing this country together again. I don't understand, as the governor of Texas, we still have a lot of Democrats there.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, you know, we worked together and we got things done and we made a big difference. And I don't understand why they can't do that in Washington, D.C.
I don't know why either. But you know what? You have to come back.
I wish Obama had another term, frankly.
Thank you, Rick Perry. We will be right back.